Serious, people of Reddit who have gone through or are going through cancer, what was the first sign that made you go to the doctor? I felt a pop in my back. It was actually a vertebra breaking. I had severe pain after, and was later diagnosed with multiple myeloma, a blood cancer. That was 5 years ago, and today I am in remission. I had what I thought was a stroke and found out I have a glioblastoma. I was given 12 to 15 months and so far I've made it to the 15th month. Keep going. My self-diagnosed IBS was actually a tumor and it hemorrhaged. Stage 4 rectal cancer. I beat that, but it is in my liver now, too big to operate. I am living my best life while I can. Man, I wish you good luck. I also diagnosed myself with IBS. What were your symptoms before the blood? PSA, unintended weight loss or finding blood where you normally wouldn't. Get yourself to a doctor. What is it about tumors that causes these two symptoms? Cancer by definition causes a lot of dysregulated growth, so you lose weight because it's using up your energy nutrients to grow, and it bleeds because part of that growth is it making its own blood supply to give it nutrients and oxygen. These vessels are numerous and abnormal, so they are more prone to bleeding. Making its own blood supply and WTF. Anytime your body grows, your circulatory system effectively expands to cover it. If you gain a bunch of weight, your body will create more blood vessels so the new tissue can get nutrients and whatnot. If you get a tumor, blood vessels also grow in it because it will hijack some of those nutrients. As a little bit of trivia, one of the reasons that people who are obese tend to have heart issues is because they have more blood vessels to supply blood to. Their heart beats more and or harder to compensate for pushing the blood in greater volumes. They can also experience coldness in their limbs despite having more fat because the blood has a harder time getting to their extremities. Our bodies are really cool but also kind of scary. My dad went to the ER after a big bump had formed on his neck overnight. He was prescribed severe rash medication but went back after nothing had worked. Everyone, even the doctors, thought it had been an allergic reaction or some kind of rash, but after testing for other causes, they found that he had Hodgkin's lymphoma and a 6-inch mass in his chest. It has been over a year, he has finished treatment, and the cancer shows no sign of returning. Edit, thank you all so much for all the kind words and support. I had a persistent pain in the middle of my sternum. Doctors thought it was costochondritis, essentially just inflammation of a joint. I stopped working out and lifting heavy things for 3 months, but it didn't go away. Eventually I started having night sweats and random aches. After I fractured my hip, I got an MRI and biopsy and they diagnosed me with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I got chemo and I've been in remission for 5 years. My dad had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It started as a tickle in his throat, and then he lost his voice. As in he could not talk beyond the strength of a whisper. He chalked it up to a bad throat cold. 5 weeks later, and we finally got him to go to the hospital. Stubborn SOB that he was. Huge tumor put pressure on his vocal cords which caused him to lose his voice and have difficulties swallowing. He went for chemotherapy, made it through and was in remission for 7 years before it came back. Then chemotherapy and radiation again. Then it came back in his pancreas where he had abdominal pain and other difficulties but did not tell us. Listen to your body, please. As someone who has lost their loved one, if you suspect something is out of the ordinary, do not hesitate to bother the doctor about trivial shit. Be well. Take care, and all my best to you and your family. My dad was in bed one night and said he felt like he was drowning, then began coughing up blood. That's terrifying. What kind of cancer did he have? He had kidney cancer, but it had spread to his lungs. Is he okay? Well, he was diagnosed back in 2011. He just passed back in April. After he was diagnosed, he had to get surgery that removed about 13 of his lungs and his right kidney. After that, he was forced into retirement. For 6 months we struggled for money due to Social Security giving us issues, but once our financial situation stabilized, and he was able to go with us to places like Disney World and Alaska. He got to travel around when he was feeling well and visit places he probably would have never been able to visit. Since he had terminal cancer, it was a slow decline, and over time he was able to do less and less. However, we are extremely lucky that he fought for so long and was able to see my sister get married and me graduate. Edit, I wanted to thank all of you who are sending prayers and sharing your stories. I really appreciate the support, and I hope those of you who also have similar experiences are doing well, staying happy in these difficult times. I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm glad it was a happy ending for the most part, with him getting to do things that he loved with the people he loved. Thanks, I'm just glad we had as much time as we did with him. Seizures. I got seizures out of nowhere during the night. No history of seizures in my family. Got my head screened and they found what they thought to be a benign tumor. Anaplastic astrocytoma, diagnosed 2 months before my 22nd birthday. Nearing the 5-year mark, though, with no evidence of it returning. Last year, March 2019, I, male, 35, woke up in the morning to go to the toilet. I was urinating pure, thick blood with little lumps in it. So after a severe panic attack, it began to hurt like hell. I was throwing up from the pain. After a day in the hospital and some scans and tests later, they told me to call my parents. So you know you're getting some bad news. It turns out it was kidney cancer. They removed my right kidney, fortunately no other treatments were needed, and I'm living the best life right now. If the tumor in my kidney didn't started to bleed, I would have found out much later, probably too late. Oh, and also I told myself 2020 was going to be my year. Duck 2020 and fuck cancer. So glad you got that ducker removed. Congrats on your recovery and fuck cancer indeed. My brother was 11 when he started experiencing symptoms. He started losing a lot of weight, and when he was playing soccer it looked like he was running through mud and couldn't keep up with everyone else. My parents took him to the pediatrician and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. One day, he woke up and couldn't stop throwing up. When he tried to run to the bathroom, he kept running into the door frame and couldn't walk straight. He said the lights were giving him a headache. We took him to the emergency room and they found that he had a brain tumor, and had emergency brain surgery the next day. We were extremely lucky that they decided to do a CAT scan at the ER, apparently they don't usually do them on kids. 2 brain surgeries and a year and a half of chemo later, and he's in remission now. As brutal as the therapy can be for kids and for how scary childhood cancer is in general, I will say I'm glad a lot of pediatric cancers have a good response rate to therapy when caught early. I'm happy your brother is doing well, smile. Thank you. It's been a long 8 years, and we were very lucky to have a great support system of friends and family around to help us out. I was about 12 and I noticed a gray spot in my left eye, so I went to the eye doctor. It turned out to be retinoblastoma. And fast forward about 1 week, I had my eye removed and started chemo. And now have a glass eye that has to get redone every 2 years until I was 16. Was it a small opaque spot or more of a translucent patch, if you remember? I have the faintest gray patch in my left eye's periphery and am on the verge of making an eye appointment, lol. Make an appointment. Doesn't necessarily mean cancer but could indicate a problem with your retina. I had childhood leukemia. When I was about 10, both of my knees started to hurt progressively more and more, to the point where I was limping around. I also couldn't catch my breath. I remember this one lunch lady at school giving me shit for being slow walking up some stairs, and I just didn't know what to tell her because I couldn't go any faster. I went to the doctor once and they said I sprained my knees. I played soccer so it wasn't impossible. But they never got better. So I went back and they decided to take some blood tests just in case. Thankfully they did, because it turns out my red blood cells were 13 what they were supposed to be, hence why I couldn't heal and I couldn't get enough oxygen, ever. That was 20 years ago now and I got lucky, I didn't relapse. I had friends who did, and didn't make it. Kinda a personal story that I don't talk about much. Edit, a lot of people have seen this and shared some great, oddly similar stories. Hope everyone is taking care of themselves. But to answer a recurring question, I never did see that lunch lady again. She was gone, unrelated reasons, by the time I went back to school. Another edit, I also don't blame my pediatrician for not catching it sooner, and I did end up having an incredible medical team providing treatment for me every step of the way. I'll start. Smallish, super itchy freckle on my cheek. Melanoma. All good now. Edit, I forgot to mention it was not symmetrical. That is a sign as well. Reading this made all of the freckles on my face itch. Glad you're good now. Hey. This was a wake me up in the night, it itched so bad. The spot also was sort of an odd reddish color.